Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1606A, and today's date is July 2nd, 2018, and the title of the episode is, We Have Hit That Point. The corporate media just flipped on the economy. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, a couple of reports ago, we talked about how the corporate media eventually, they would start changing their narrative about the economy. And we're already starting to see this, and we're going to be discussing this in a little bit. But first, we want to talk about what is happening out in other parts of the world. If we look at Australia, we are seeing that the property bubble out there, it is beginning to pop. In Sydney, Australia, the largest property market, it looks like the housing bubble, well, it's coming down right now. Home prices fell around 4.6% in June. Compared to a year ago, with house prices down 6.2% and prices of condos down 0.7%, and this is all according to CoreLogic. And we can see that the prices in these areas are continually dropping. Now, if we look June 2017, we look at September 2017, the prices have dropped quite a bit in Sydney. And if we move over to Melbourne, we're seeing the same exact thing, a drop from December of 2017 down to negative 2.2%. And when we look at this, we can see that this whole thing is starting to come apart. Now, it's not just in Australia. It is also happening in Canada. And things are really starting to break down. And this is going to spread to other countries because we can see out in the UK and the United States, there's also problems. And this is just the beginning stages. Now, if we look at Australia, we can see Sydney down to 56% from 68% a year ago. Melbourne down from 71%. Now it's at 60% from a year ago. Brisbane, it was at 52%. Now it's down to 38%. And Perth, it was at 40%. Now it's down to 25%. And when we look at Toronto, Vancouver, we're seeing the same exact things. So when we look at the entire picture here, we're starting to see that things are starting to break apart very, very quickly. And as time goes on, it's not going to improve. Now remember, those individuals that purchased at the height of the market, they're already losing value. And those people who've taken out mortgages at the height of the market, well, they're going to be underwater. And we're going to see this happen quite a bit throughout all different countries and even here in the United States. And many of those individuals here in the United States who've purchased at the height of the market prior to 2008, they still haven't recovered. They're still underwater. They still can't get out of their homes. So the situation is not fixed. It's just going to get a lot worse as time goes on. We're seeing that U.S. manufacturing, it is slumped. And we're starting to see that things are starting to break apart very, very quickly. Manufacturing PMI dropped from 56.4 to 55.4, 4 months low, and it was a little bit better than they expected, which was around 54.6. But when we look at this and we look under the hood, it's stagflation, red flags all over the place. The PMI showed output growth slowing, new order growth at the weakest since November 17th. And as far as the global synchronous recovery narrative, it's not happening. And things are starting to break apart very, very quickly. Historically, a big red flashing warning sign like this and many other indicators that we have seen and talked about, well, this is a sign that the U.S. is heading towards a recession. Now, we've known for a very long time because we've been following all the indicators. And remember, all the calculations of unemployment, GDP, it's all the same. So what's happening right now is exactly what they've been using all along since 2008. And even before that, but they modified it a little bit. So prior to 2008 and throughout 2008, 2009, 10, 11, 12, the corporate media was out there telling us that the economy was recovering. It was getting better. And we were coming down, from 6% unemployment to 5% unemployment. And GDP, well, it was really under 2%. It wasn't really going anywhere. And they were telling us that, the reason why retail's not doing well is because of the winter storms we were having in the Northeast, but the rest of the country was fine. Then they switched that to online because it didn't make sense anymore because retail kept on slumping and stores started to close. We talked about the retail apocalypse before it even happened. And what we're seeing right now is that nothing's changed. The economy is exactly where it was. Actually, it's worse now. And the manipulation is still the same. And what we see happening right now is that the corporate media is starting to flip. In the Wall Street Journal, they're talking about the next recession and how it may hit around 2020, which is very interesting because that's when the elections are. Now, it looks like they're trying to plan this whole thing out at this point. They're trying to say, okay, the next recession is going to come right before the elections in 2020. Now, why would they do this? Well, they're going to use everything they possibly can to get Trump out of office. This is the plan. Now, again, this doesn't mean that the recession won't happen before this, but you're going to see a lot of propaganda now with the corporate media, and it's already started, where they're saying that things are falling apart. Now, they're even going to use, economists, statistics, forecasters, and the Wall Street Journal's already surveyed, 76 forecasters, and they're saying that the current economic expansion is getting long in the tooth by historical standards, and we're starting to see signs that the economy is starting to break apart. Now, this is very interesting, and I know that the numbers are manipulated, but during the during the period when we had, 5% or 4% unemployment, they said everything was fine. Now we're below 4%. Now, all of a sudden, everything is starting to break apart and fall apart. We've already had the retail apocalypse. I mean, stores are closing left and right. We know Toys R Us just closed down. 33,000 people are going to be looking for jobs. We know corporations, well, they've been manipulating their books, doing a lot of buybacks. We know that the central banks, the Swiss central bank, they have been purchasing a huge amount of stocks to keep the stock market propped up. A lot of tech stocks they've been purchasing. And now all of a sudden, they're saying there could be a recession headed our way. And the only reason they're doing this is because they're laying the groundwork to show everyone that Trump ran the economy into the ground. Now, again, I said there's going to be two sides here. It's Trump, the patriots, the central bankers, the corporate media, the deep state. And they're both going to they're going to try to control the narrative. We're already seeing the corporate media out there pushing their narrative. And you're going to see a lot more stories pop up about how the economy can't continue like this. And we're also going to see Trump and the Patriots where they're going to push their narrative. And this is going to be a battle right up until the end. Now, this doesn't mean that something else might happen because remember, it's not foolproof. Yes, they're planning on this. Yes, they're setting the stage. Yes, they're trying to control the narrative. But something could come out of left field. Could be a black swan all of a sudden, and everything starts to fall apart. I mean, right now we see in Australia and Canada, the housing market, the bubble there is starting to burst. Now remember, they can't control people going out and purchasing homes. If people get the sense that housing prices are dropping very quickly, people are going to get nervous. And people say, you know what, let's hold on a second. Yes, some people will start purchasing, but other people, they're going to step back for a second. We saw this happen prior to 2008. Housing prices were coming down. Traffic started to dry up. There were certain individuals that said, oh, look, the prices came down. Let me go purchase a house now. Once they purchased the house, the price came down even further and they lost out. This time around, I think everyone's going to stay on the sidelines and they're going to watch this. This means when prices start to come down, people are going to take their houses off the market. And this could start the domino effect because if it's happening in Australia, it's happening in Canada, it's going to happen here in the United States. It's going to happen in UK, just like we saw back in 2008. And with the Fed raising interest rates, it's not going to help the situation. So again, they're both going to try to control the narrative. The corporate media already right now is already laying the groundwork for this next recession. How bad is it going to be? I think this is the collapse of the entire system because the debt level that we have right now, not just here in the U.S., but globally, it cannot be sustained. The amount of individuals that are working right now cannot sustain this debt. Now, if we go into a recession, there's going to be less and less people working, which means a lot less of your taxes are going to go into the government, which means they won't have the funds to pay for the debt. And if more and more people lose their job and they can't find work, guess what? They have less money to use, which means they have to borrow more. If they borrow more, the debt increases. If the debt increases, they don't have the tax receipts to cover this. So really, it's a no-win situation here. And this is where we are headed. And this is why you need to be ready and prepared. Now, again, they're planning on controlling this. That's their whole point here. They want to control it. They want to push it to the edge at a certain period of time. Once they are there, they can do it right before the elections. Think about what happened in 2008. The economy fell apart. McCain had no clue. Obama came out to be the winner. You think it was planned to the entire system to come down at that point? They're going to try to use the same exact strategy because they want a certain individual in office, the one they can control completely. And we see right now, this is their move because already with the Wall Street Journal saying that the next recession may hit in 2020, their whole plan is to bring it down during that period to mess up the entire election cycle and get Trump out of this position. And if this does happen at that time, we are then in a collapse scenario. If it happens beforehand, this is a black swan, something they didn't expect, and the whole system just completely fell apart. Or the Trump and the Patriots decided, something, let's bring it down now. But I don't know why they would with elections coming up. I think they would wait to after the elections and then go ahead with the reset because it gives them 4 years at that point. So here we are. The mainstream media, they are pushing their agenda. The deep state, the central banks, they're preparing for a collapse, and they're just laying the groundwork right now. So whatever you're doing, continually prepare for what is coming. Get ready because they're about to bring the entire system down. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.